Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, the main goal today, obviously, is going to be a deep dive into the Cleveland Browns. I probably should have started this yesterday. It always takes longer than I thought, but, you know, it's like, oh, I got 2 days. Well, not really, because Sunday we're going to talk about the games and all that kind of stuff. But that is the main crux of what I want to do today. We do have to start off with the I don't want to be too dramatic here, but the disconcerting news about Tucker Kraft. I'm not going to sit here and call it catastrophic because it sounds like we avoided something much more serious. But Tucker Kraft did injure his left knee during practice on Thursday. Fortunately, the injury is being described as a tweak rather than something more serious. There are several reports saying that he's going to be okay. They don't believe it's a long-term injury. He is currently listed as questionable for the upcoming game. There's talk about we'll see how he feels on Friday, which is today for me, yesterday for you. But obviously, there's several concerns. Number one, we may not be with him, or we may be without him this week, which is not great. Fortunately, it's the Browns, right? Not that you underestimate any team, but if this was Philly, Baltimore, Detroit, even, you know, Minnesota or Chicago or something, you know, it's like, oh, don't. Fortunately, this is one of the worst of the teams that we play this year. So, you know, of the maybe 5 teams you'd want this to be, maybe one of them. The other potentially more problematic concern is this going to be a lingering issue? I would guess not. I mean, usually stuff like this, tweaks or whatever, do go away. But football is a very rigorous sport, and it's hard to fully heal in the little amounts of time that they have allocated. You know what I mean? It's like you get a few days to try to heal it, and then you go out on the field and you bash the living crap out of it, not to mention you're out there practicing, which even limited participation, you're still running on a tweaked knee. I think he'll be okay, but you never know. You know what I mean? The positive of these things always, and it's the same with Jaden Reed, as much as that's absolutely terrible. He was off to a phenomenal start. But the good news with that is always, well, other guys are going to get more opportunities. Matthew Golden, Savion Williams, even Dontavian Wicks, and other guys like that. You can look for little mini breakouts or something. Same here for Luke Musgrave. He also has looked phenomenal. Now, they're not the same tight end, and they don't do the same types of things and everything. So I can't guarantee it's a 1-to-1 that when he goes out, you know, same with Reed, I guess. But there is some potential there for Musgrave to maybe get a few extra looks. Also, something else to keep an eye on, Josh Jacobs' touchdown streak. He's got 11. This game going into it will be his 12th. If he's able to do it against a very stiff run defense, he would become just the 5th running back in NFL history to record a rushing touchdown in 12 consecutive games. The last to do it was LaDainian Tomlinson in 2004. Other guys that did it, John Riggins, Emmitt Smith, and George Rogers. As for Zach Tom, I would say just based on reports, it's not looking great. He is practicing, which is great. The problem is, apparently, when he, extends or opens up in his pass sets or whatever, he says it's still very painful. He's not going to be able to play if that's the case. So Matt LaFleur said we'll give him up until Sunday, which is another kind of bad sign. It's sort of one of those things that tells you it's going to be down to the wire. In other words, he ain't going to be ready today. He ain't going to be ready tomorrow, as in Friday, Saturday. And then Sunday, probably not, but we will see how he's feeling all the way up until kickoff kind of thing. And he may go, but if he does, he's going to be in pain and all that stuff. So I would just expect him, personally, just based on the words I'm hearing, I would expect him to not be playing. Especially since you know how they play those games of even if they know, they're not going to tell you. He's probably telling the truth here, but they also want to maybe keep Cleveland on their toes a little bit. And it does make a difference because Myles Garrett typically lines up on the opposite side, is my understanding. if they know he's going to be out, they might want to put him more over the right tackle. If they don't know, well, up to you, I guess. Figure it out. But speaking of the injury report, I want to play this little clip for you from the Pat McAfee show.
When you look at the Packers injury report, they didn't play. They played last Thursday, so they've had kind of the mini bye here. But when you look at their injury report, what stands out to you?
Did you see that Micah Parsons is not even listed on the Packers injury report this week?
I did see that.
You happy about that, Ty?
Yeah, I'm very happy about that. Yes.
What do you think that means, Ty?
I think they're going to unleash him.
Me too. I think here comes Micah Parsons, the full dose of Micah Parsons. And if it's not full, it's 75-80% ahead of next week's Sunday night matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. But lo and behold, it took about 2 weeks for Micah Parsons to get past that back injury, to get off that injury report, and to be essentially cleared for full go on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. And you're right, they have looked like maybe the best team in football. There hasn't been anybody that's looked better or more impressive than the Green Bay Packers through the early part of the season. And yeah, there are some injury issues there. Jaden Reed had surgery this week. They're down Jaden Reed. Josh Jacobs showed up on the injury report, although it sounds like it's a maintenance issue with the veteran. We'll see how that plays out. But Micah Parsons is off the injury report. Off. And that means he's probably going off on Sunday and going off next week against the Dallas Cowboys. How much are we going to talk about that game next week when Micah Parsons is headed to Dallas? We're already doing it a week and a half out, right?
Yeah.
But here it comes. That's going to be we talked about juicy in this pocket. That's going to be a juicy a juicy storyline for next week.
All right, that's enough talking about juicy. Thank you very much, Adam Schefter. Now, here's what I'll say. I'll believe it when I see it, because getting a Green Bay Packers edge rusher to play more than 60% of snaps is just feels like something that they just refuse to do. I don't know if that's a Matt LaFleur thing or if it was prior defensive coordinators or what. Maybe it just has to do with the type of players that we have. But it has been a gripe and complaint among Packer fans, and I'll tell you this. When you have a guy like Micah Parsons, I don't think you can do that crap. You just can't. Myles Garrett doesn't do it. Bosa doesn't do it. The freaking Detroit guy doesn't do it. These guys play, they barely come off the field. Not to mention, you've got one of the greatest defensive players in the entire NFL, and he's flat out telling you, stop doing that. Stop taking me off the field. You're starting to piss me off a little bit. Okay, we want him out there. You want him out there. Everybody wants him out there. The defense is better when he's out there. Everything's better when he's out there. And he's starting to, I don't want to say get disgruntled, because he's having a great time. But let's not get on his bad side by upsetting him in a way that hurts us and helps no one. All right? I'm not saying he can't come off for a breather once in a while. Fine. That's great. Maybe it's when the offenses are on the field. But he needs to be out there a lot more. When you look at the snap count percentages and whatnot, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. If you compare it to the safeties, because the safeties generally don't come off the field, Ronnie Hickman has played 108 snaps for the Cleveland Browns. Let's assume that is the total amount of defensive snaps they've had. Myles Garrett has played 83. So if we say 83 divided by 108, he's playing about 77% of the total defensive snaps. If we look at the Green Bay Packers, Xavier McKinney has played 136 snaps. Micah Parsons has played 77. So 77 divided by 136 is 56%. Even that is that's like full time for the Green Bay Packers. Rashawn has played 90, so Micah is second behind Rashawn. But remember, Rashawn is not even playing, sort of a Myles Garrett workload. At least I don't think. It might be close. Who knows? I don't think so, though. So the point is, we got him at 56. Let's get him up to 76. Over in Pittsburgh, Juan Thornhill, 119 snaps. TJ Watt, 106. It's 89%. So a lot of these elite pass rushers, when you look at it, you got the safety who doesn't come off the field, and then the next highest is either the number 2 safety, or sometimes, like in the case of Pittsburgh, it's that edge rusher that has the second most snaps. In Green Bay, usually it's the number 1 safety, the number 2 safety, your first, second, third corner, your linebackers and then like your edge rusher. Actually, Pittsburgh does have their corners playing more snaps than their safeties, but whatever. In Green Bay, that's how we do the metrics. Safeties don't come off the field. But all right, let's get started with the basics for the Cleveland Browns here. Last year, the Cleveland Browns under Kevin Stefanski went 3-14. They ranked 32nd in points on offense, 28th in yards. On defense, they were 27th in points and 19th in yards, which is one of those interesting things you kind of circle and look at and go, they had one of the worst defenses in football last year. We're hearing they have an elite defense. Is what we're seeing right now a fluke, or did something massively change? They were 31st in turnovers offensively with 34. They were 30th in takeaways with 12. They were dead last in interceptions in both offense and defense. They threw 23 interceptions and only took the ball away 4 times. They were dead last in net yards per attempt passing. They were 27th in net yards per attempt defensively. They ranked 23rd in rushing yards per attempt and 20th in rush yards per attempt defensively. Again, pretty big change this year. They were dead last year in percentage of drives ending in a score. Their defense ranked 27th in percentage of drives ending in a score. Their 3 wins last year were Week 2 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They won that game 18-13. A divisional win against Baltimore, which is obviously really odd, but it's also very fluky, division, all that stuff. They won that game 29-24. They also won another division game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was, obviously not the best version of the Steelers we've seen over the last decade, but also division fluky thing. They won that game 19-24. They lost every other game. They lost to the Cowboys, who were bad. They lost to the Giants, who were bad. They lost to the Raiders, who were bad. They lost to the Saints. They lost to everybody. If we compare that to Cleveland this year, the record is largely the same. They're 0-2. Offensively, they're 27th in yards or in points. Defensively, they're 25th in points. Still quite bad. Where they excel is yardage. They are number 1 in yards allowed. They are number 1 in first downs allowed. They're 8th in net yards per attempt passing. 3rd in passing yards total. They're number 1 in rush yards allowed. Number 7 in touchdowns allowed. Number 1 in yards per attempt allowed with 2.1. They are the number 3 team in average time per drive, number 3 team in average number of plays per drive, and number 1 in net yards per drive. Now, I guess you could say the issue here is that a lot of that production came from Cincinnati. Because you look at it, and Baltimore scored 41 points. How the heck do you do that without getting a bunch of yards? Well, they rushed for 115 yards. It's not earth-shattering, but it's a decent number of yards. They only allowed 49 against Cincinnati, though, so it averages out to being something pretty solid. It's still all very impressive, and they only allowed 207 pass yards in that game, so it actually ended up being less total yards than against the Cincinnati Bengals. But it's kind of one of those, let's just maybe wait and see how this all pans out. If we flip over to DVOA, Cleveland is listed as the 24th best team in football. It's pretty funny who's after them, so I'm going to read them. Pittsburgh ranks 25th, Minnesota 26th, Miami 27th, the Giants 28th, New England 29th, Tennessee 30th, Carolina 31st, Chicago Bears dead last 32nd. Oh, yeah. Cleveland's offense via DVOA is currently ranked 29th with a negative 22.7%. Defensively, they're currently ranked 10th with a minus 12%. Green Bay being number 1, negative 34.6%, just saying. But that's kind of just a real quick skimming. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back, and I want to rip through the roster real quick. Just kind of get acclimated with who we're going to be going up against. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, let's go spot by spot here. And quarterback is where we're going to start, and it's one of the more significant aspects of everything you need to know about the Browns. starting with the fact that they are on the hook, I believe, like $72 million this year or something just stupid with a quarterback that is probably not going to play a single snap this year. And so they've got a complete quarterback overhaul. So again, when you look at last year compared to this year, it is night and day different. Number one, they signed 13-year veteran Joe Flacco to a 1-year deal. They actually traded to get Kenny Pickett. They sent a 5th-round pick as well as Dorian Thompson-Robinson to bring in Kenny Pickett. That ended in disaster. They were very fortunate in that they traded him to the Raiders for a 5th-round pick. Now, they didn't get a player back, but I think they were looking to get rid of Dorian Thompson-Robinson anyways. So it ended up working out, but pretty crazy to send a player and a pick for a quarterback and then shipping that quarterback off. But in addition to the 1-year deal with Flacco are the 2 rookies. We heard a ton about this. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders is the one everybody's talking about. However, the more significant is actually the guy that was drafted before him. Shedeur was in the 5th round. Dylan Gabriel was a 3rd-round pick. And actually, he did come out for a little bit of action. Joe Flacco has been the starting quarterback for 2 weeks, but as Baltimore was beating the living crap out of them, they decided to put in Dylan Gabriel for a little bit. They were already down 41-10 by the time Dylan Gabriel came in. He did actually do very well, but insanely small sample size. 3 targets, 3 receptions, 19 yards and a touchdown, 90 PFF grade, 87 passing grade, 132.6. I mean, when you throw 3 passes and there's a touchdown involved, it's going to be some crazy stats. But Kevin Stefanski says they're not planning on making a quarterback change right now, which is, in one way you look at it and say, okay, so there's nothing there. On the other hand, I mean, the fact that it's already a conversation 2 weeks in is pretty wild. But it shouldn't impact us in any way. Joe Flacco, he is 56 of 90, 489 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So not the greatest start. 58 PFF grade, 58 passing grade, 0 big-time throws, 3 turnover-worthy plays. So it's pretty unfortunate that all 3 of his turnover-worthy plays got picked. To make matters worse, there are already 7 drops on the season for Joe Flacco, which is 11.1%. 11% of his passes get dropped right now. He's also been sacked 4 times and has a 70.1 passer rating and 2 penalties. While kept clean, he has a 78 PFF grade, which is good, but it's certainly not great. 355 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. When under pressure, which is 37% of the time, I wouldn't be surprised if that number goes up against the Packers, because that's pretty modest. 42% completion rate, 134 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 29 PFF grade, 30 passing grade. He has a 44.8 PFF grade on deep passes. So that's not great. He's 2 of 6 for 51 yards and a pick. In the intermediate part of the field, 10 to 19 yards, 71 grade, short 65, behind the line of scrimmage 65. So that's Joe Flacco. Looking at the wide receiver room in terms of changes, Cleveland Browns in 2024, they traded 5th and 6th round picks to Denver for Jerry Jeudy. It's a guy that's been a big name for a long time that has never really met that level of potential that people thought he could have. This offseason in March, they added Pro Bowler Deontay Johnson. That's one way to put it. That was just a 1-year deal. They also retained Cedric Tillman and integrated receivers Jamari Thrash, 2024 5th-round pick, Isaiah Bond, 2025 UDFA, and former draft pick Cade McDonald, who is now on IR. So right now you're looking at primarily Jerry Jeudy and Jamari Thrash with Cedric Tillman in the slot. Backups would be DeAndre Carter and Isaiah Bond. If we look at the overall target distribution, Jerry Jeudy is their top targeted receiver. He is not their number 1 receiver in terms of actual routes run, but it's pretty close. Cedric Tillman has just got a couple routes on him. But Jeudy has 16 targets, 9 receptions, 117 yards, 56 PFF grade, 56 receiving grade. If you're wondering why, it probably has something to do with the 1.29 yards per route run and 3 drops so far this season. Not very inspired. The other top receiver, Cedric Tillman, 15 targets, 7 receptions, 74 yards, 57 grade, 57 receiving grade, 0.79 yards per route run, and a drop. After that is tight end Harold Fannin Jr. He's got a 59 grade. He's got 14 targets, 12 receptions, 111 yards. After that is running back Dylan Sampson. We'll get into tight ends and running backs in a minute, but just kind of going through the stats of the, who are the top receivers. Dylan Sampson, the running back, 11 targets, 11 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. He actually has a 92 receiving grade, so he's about the only guy that's grading out well. Njoku, been around a long time. He's got 10 targets, 7 receptions, 46 PFF grade, 59 receiving grade. After that is Jerome Ford, the running back, Isaiah Bond with 4 targets, Quinshawn Judkins with 3, Jamari Thrash only 2 targets despite his 30 snaps. The only guy with a decent yards per route run is running back Dylan Sampson, who's at 3.08. Nobody else is, the only guy even close to 2 yards per route run is Harold Fannin. And of the 7 drops, again, you've got 3 from Judy, 1 from Isaiah Bond, 1 from Jerome Ford, 1 from Harold Fannin, and 1 from Cedric Tillman. Since we're on the subject of tight ends, Njoku, again, he's been around a long time with the Cleveland Browns. He was extended in 2023. This year, 2025, in the draft, they added Harold Fannin. They used a 3rd-round pick on him out of Bowling Green. Third option is Blake Whiteheart. Obviously, we haven't said his name, so it's not super relevant. But it may be worthwhile to keep an eye on Harold Fannin. Again, from a yards per route run standpoint, you've got your running back is the best, and then your tight end Harold Fannin would be the next best. Pretty much by every metric, Fannin right now through 2 weeks is ahead of Njoku. More targets, more receptions, more yards, higher PFF grade, higher PFF receiving grade, higher yards per route run. Even has more drops. Looking at the running back room, there's been a lot of attention paid to their 2nd-round pick, Quinshawn Judkins. Judkins got himself in a little bit of trouble. Ended up getting all through that stuff. There was also the whole 2nd-round pick contract thing. And so we got to see Quinshawn Judkins for the first time in week 2 against Baltimore. He didn't grade out super well, but the stats were pretty fantastic. It was 10 carries for 61 yards, 6.1 yards per attempt. 5.7 of those 6.1 came after contact. There's also 2 missed tackles forced. So not a terrible first outing. Dylan Sampson had been the top guy currently through 2 weeks. He has the most attempts at 16, but that's just 35 yards, 2.2 yards per attempt. Jerome Ford with 12 attempts, 39 yards, 3.3 yards per attempt. Again, Judkins is going to skyrocket to the top, with Dylan Sampson being the next guy and Jerome Ford being sort of the veteran number 3 to fill in. Dylan Sampson, by the way, was a rookie 4th-round pick this year out of Tennessee. So you got the 2 young guys with the veteran 2022 pick. But very new group, so it's hard to really go super in-depth on it. Again, Judkins' stats look good, the grades don't, and I think part of it is that he had 1 big breakaway run, and so that's going to skew the stats pretty massively. He only had 1 carry over 10 yards out of his 10, so the other 9 were obviously not. More than 50% of his total yards came on 1 big breakaway run. Doesn't mean he's not a good running back at all. I'm just saying, in 10 attempts, it's kind of hard to form a overall opinion here. And then lastly for the offense is the offensive line, which has been the center of a lot of attention. So first of all, they've got DeJuan Jones playing at left tackle. DeJuan Jones was a 2023 4th-round pick out of Ohio State. He has been a pretty bad football player, and he continues to get worse. He started off at right tackle because he's a massive human being, 6'8", 375 pounds. Beast. He had a 53 run blocking grade, 73 pass blocking grade, so not the worst, right? Then in 2024, he played 300 snaps at right tackle and about 200 at left tackle. His run blocking grade went down from a 53 to a 45, and his pass blocking grade went down from a 73 to a 57. This year, they seem to be keeping him at left tackle. Played 138 snaps there, one at right tackle for some random reason. He has a 33 overall grade, 37 run blocking grade, and 43 pass blocking grade. He's allowed 0 sacks, but 2 hits and 6 hurries, 8 total pressures, and has 5 penalties. Not only that, the big guy is struggling to handle the heat. He actually ended up leaving the Ravens game this past week for several snaps because he was so hot and needed a break. Turns out one of the negatives of being 6'8" and 374 pounds is that you tend to overheat a little bit. Something to keep an eye on. But that is their left tackle. And he is, I would argue, at least through 2 weeks, the worst offensive lineman the Packers have seen all year. At left guard is Joel Bitonio. Joel Bitonio is the only guy that's played left guard this year. He is a good football player. He is a 7-time Pro Bowl left guard. He was a 2024 pick. He's certainly not in his prime. In fact, there was a steep fall off after 2022. I don't know if he endured an injury or what, but from 2014 to 2022, he was just basically elite every single year. And there was just, like I said, a massive drop-off at 2023. So far this year, though, 71 pass blocking grade and 78 run blocking grade. He's looking pretty decent. The issue is that Joel Bitonio has a back injury and is not practiced all week. Now, I don't have the Friday injury report yet. I'm recording this before that comes out. But it is not looking fantastic for Bitonio, who is one of the few bright spots on this line, even at 34 years old, to have a back injury. It's similar to what I've said about some of our guys. Even if he plays, he's playing with a back injury. So we'll see what happens with Bitonio. Obviously, Friday is going to be massive. If he doesn't practice on Friday, that's pretty rough. If he does, can probably pencil him in as playing. Not a guarantee, but that would just be my guess. The biggest question is, what does that shuffling look like? Presumably Tevin Jenkins, who is with the Chicago Bears, would slot into that spot, would be my guess. The other guess would be Cornelius Lucas, who's been playing right tackle in place of Jack Conklin, who's also been dealing with injuries, but that would depend on if Jack Conklin is playing. We'll get there. So Bitonio has been pretty decent. Week 1 was definitely better than week 2, and he's going to be playing injured if he plays at all against us. At center is Ethan Posick. Ethan Posick is a guy that's been around a while. He spent a lot of time in Seattle, was really, really bad. Kind of started to figure it out in the middle, like his final year with Seattle. His run blocking got good, and then in Cleveland, everything kind of improved. His pass blocking got better, but he's kind of declining now. He kind of just figured it out right when he hit 30. He currently has a 54 run blocking grade and a 65 pass blocking grade. He's given up 3 pressures, including a sack, no penalties. He's not good, but compared to some of the other players, I guess he's fine. Wyatt Teller is at right guard. Wyatt Teller has been pretty solid, kind of on and off, more of a run blocker than a pass blocker. He's currently sitting at 75 overall, 74 run blocking, 68 pass blocking. He's allowed a sack, 7 hurries, 8 total pressures, no penalties so far. Surprisingly, he's already about 31 years old. They are. I think Cleveland last year was the oldest team in the NFL. I can't imagine, considering they added Flacco and stuff like that they got younger. So I would guess this is still the oldest team in football, and it's not hard to see why. I mean, these guys are their knees are cracking a little bit. And then at right tackle, it becomes a question of, will Jack Conklin return? Jack Conklin has been practicing. He's been limited with an elbow injury. My guess would be that he's going to play. Jack Conklin, also 31 years old, another guy that was a phenomenal football player for Tennessee for 4 years, and then for Cleveland for several, you could say all the way up to 2022, I guess. 2023 he graded out good, but he didn't play. He was injured. But that injury seemed to really screw with him because he didn't return very well in 2024, and he's not off to a good start in 2025, even though it was just one game. In that game, he had a 50 PFF grade, 45 run blocking, 59 pass blocking, and then went out with an injury. If he returns, it's probably not peak Jack Conklin, but it's still, I would guess, the better scenario for Cleveland. Cornelius Lucas is the other option. He did technically grade out better, but I would be weary of the 34-year-old if I was Cleveland. He's got a 62 pass blocking and 60 run blocking grade. He's allowed 10 pressures in 2 games. And that's with, not even playing a full game week 1. It was most of the game, 50 out of, let's say, 70 snaps, 56 of 70, whatever. But 10 pressures is a lot. And so when we take a step back and look at the team as a whole, what they've done, I guess to put it into perspective, the Green Bay Packers have allowed 15 pressures the entire year. I should say the offensive line has allowed 15 pressures the entire year. That doesn't include running backs, quarterbacks, whatever. Cleveland has given up the most pressures their offensive line has in the entire NFL at 35. So yeah, the Green Bay Packers defensive line, linebackers, defensive coordinator, defensive line coach, they are absolutely licking their chops, because if there's ever been an opportunity to tee off, it's this week. Because you've got a stick-in-the-mud, 35-year-old whatever quarterback, no mobility, behind maybe the worst offensive line in football right now. That's just the situation. So, I don't know how else to, without giving you too much hope, just reporting the news here, that's what it is. Okay, let's take a break. We'll come back and look at their defense. So again, this is obviously the strength of the team. There are some questions similar to, quarterback, running back, whatever, because we haven't really seen a lot and there's a lot of new. But we'll parse through what we've got up to this point. So, defensive line, if we look at just the snap counts for what we've seen so far this year, Mason Graham is one of the biggest question marks. Mason Graham was taken number 5 overall. Obviously, you take a guy number 5 overall because he is an absolute freak. He was taken out of Michigan. So far, it has not gone very well. He has a 64 grade, 70 run defense, which is decent, 48 tackling grade, 52 pass rush grade. He has 2 pressures on 50 attempts. That's 4%, which is horrible. At 320 pounds, he's built like a nose tackle, and he's kind of playing like one. And I'm here to tell you, you don't draft a nose tackle at number 5 overall. So, decent run defense grade, appalling pass rush through the first 2 games with a 4% pressure rate and no sacks. But you never know when that, if that light switches on, when that's going to happen. So I wouldn't rule him out. I'm guessing he's a big part of the defensive run defense resurgence kind of thing that's going on, or at least is one of the factors that's helped that. They also signed veteran defensive tackle Malik Collins and defensive end Joe Tryon-Shoyinka in free agency. So Malik Collins has been their number 2 defensive tackle so far. He has an incredibly high PFF grade at 90.4, 61 run defense, 92 pass rush. He has 6 pressures and no sacks on 52 attempts. Here's the thing, though. Never has this been a thing with him. Okay, he is a decent pass rusher at 30 years old. He was with Dallas for 4 years, and they shipped him off. He was a 3rd-round pick, so he did his 4 years, and they're like, okay, we're done with you. He went to Vegas. He was terrible. They shipped him off. He went to Houston. He played there for 3 years. They shipped him off. He went to San Francisco for 1 year, and they shipped him off. He is now with Cleveland. He has been with 5 different teams since he was drafted in the 3rd round in 2016. And that doesn't happen because you're a stud. Now, he is a pure pass rusher, so he is the yin to the Mason Graham yang, or yin, whatever. It's ying, all right? It rhymes. Shut up. But all that to say, again, there's a question of is it real? Is it fluky? What's going on? This is one of the things I would say is pretty fluky. Again, he's a decent pass rusher. He's not this good. He's not 92 PFF grade good. He is roughly a 10% pass rush guy, 10% pressure rate pass rush guy. He gets, 24 and 23, he had 6 and 7 sacks. And those are PFF sacks, where halves are counted as holes, And those were his 2 best years, basically, of his career. So the Malik Collins thing, maybe he's getting a big boost because he's got Mason Graham on one side and he's got Myles Garrett on the other side, and it's just been great for him. Maybe. I don't know. He had Bosa next to him in San Francisco. So, I don't know. Number 3 defensive tackle is Shelby Harris. He's played 48 snaps the last 2 games, so, not a major impact guy, but he's currently at a 47 grade. He is 34 years old. Man, this team, I mean, he was at his peak in 2020 for Denver. He's actually quite good with Denver. And then he went to Seattle, and he spent 3 years at Cleveland, and it's been a downward spiral ever since, which would mean his decline started at, 30-ish, which makes sense. He's now 34, so we are seeing the bottom of the freaking barrel. And then Aiden Huntington is a guy that might rotate in, but not very much. So on the defensive line, long story short, Mason Graham is the guy to keep an eye on. He is right now, though, just a nose tackle run defender. And then Malik Collins is your pass rusher. Off the edge, obviously, the main guy to keep an eye on is Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett has an 85 PFF grade, 82 run defense grade, 76 tackling, and 88 pass rush grade. He has 10 pressures on 54 attempts and 4 sacks already in 2 freaking games. No introduction really needed beyond that. That's Myles Garrett's a freak. The guy that's taken the second most amount of snaps is Isaiah McGuire. He is a 4th-round pick, being with the team for, this is now year 3 for him. He is definitely much more of a run defender than a pass rusher, although he's sitting at 9 pressures and a sack on 44 attempts. So the numbers are what they are. Number 3 pass rusher is Alex Wright. Again, more of a run defender. So, again, I mean, they've got the run defenders, although I will say he's never really been a very good run defender, so that might be kind of the whole fluky thing. But 2 weeks in a row, he's at a run defense grade above 70. He's at a 77.8 run defense grade. He has 0 pressures on 23 attempts, though, with a 52 pass rush grade. So you got Myles Garrett and some, hold the edge guys that have been holding it down. Linebackers. Free agency last year, they went out and added Devin Bush. That was a phenomenal addition. Devin Bush never really was very good, came to Cleveland and found his calling. He was fantastic last year and is off to a phenomenal start this year. This year in free agency, they added Jerome Baker. Jerome Baker came from, Seattle by way of Tennessee, by way of Miami. But then in the second round, they also drafted Carson Schwessinger. Now, they already had Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, JOK. JOK ends up getting injured. And so essentially you got the 3 new guys. Devin Bush has been here last year as well, but Carson Schwessinger has actually taken the most snaps of all linebackers. In fact, second most snaps on the entire defense, as apparently their top dog, which is impressive considering how young and new to the NFL he is, as well as how good some of the other guys are. But Carson right now, unfortunately for the rest of us, has an 82 PFF grade, 73 run defense grade, 83 tackling grade, 65 pass rush grade, and a 77 coverage grade. The good news is it was very different between Cincinnati and Baltimore. He had a 90 grade against Cincinnati, 65 against Baltimore. His coverage was an 84 against Cincinnati. It was a 63 against Baltimore. Never was bad. 68 run defense, 63 coverage is not bad. But there's at least a little bit of hope that maybe he's not going to be a massive freak Edgerrin Cooper type. We'll have to see, but the early reports are quite promising for Carson Schwessinger. Devin Bush, like I said, also playing really well. He's been in the NFL for a long time, but is only 27 years old. He was terrible in his 4 years in Pittsburgh, terrible in his 1 year with Seattle, goes to Cleveland and bumps up to a 79 grade, 86 run defense, 81 tackling, 77 pass rush, 58 coverage. This year so far, 91, 79 run defense, 79 pass rush, and 90 coverage. Now, we'll see if that coverage goes back down because he's been pretty consistently in the 50s with that, including last year in Cleveland. But last year he was phenomenal as a run defender, and so far he's continuing to do that. So the linebackers are looking incredible. Jerome Baker also pretty decent as the number 3 linebacker when they decide to bring him in. This, with the addition of Schwessinger, with the addition of Jerome Baker, with the addition of Mason Graham could somewhat explain, even if it's a little bit fake, even if some of these guys are going to regress a little bit over the course of the season, this by itself can somewhat explain the explosion of run defense talent. At corner, you've still got longtime cornerback Denzel Ward, who's a 2018 first-round pick. They've still got Greg Newsome, who's a 2021 first-round pick. Those are your top two guys. Greg Newsome has taken the most snaps among corners. He currently has a 70 PFF grade, which is pretty high for him. He had a good game against Cincinnati and then kind of not so good against Baltimore. His run defense has been great through 2 weeks, which is very odd because he's never been good at that. Same with tackling, so that could be, again, one of the guys that's going to start regressing. The coverage is about what it has been. He had a 75 grade week 1, 57 week 2, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 88 yards, 1 pass breakup so far through 2 games. Historically, he's a guy that grades out in the mid-60s. His coverage grades, maybe low 70s. This past year in 2024 was his worst year, kind of across the board. He was bad at everything. Looks like he might have been injured, which is maybe part of it. But again, I wouldn't expect much more than like a 70 coverage grade. Denzel Ward, somehow only 28 years old, been around a long time. His heyday was kind of his first 4 years, and then after that it was kind of a bit of a decline. His coverage grades the last 3, so 22 through 24, 60, 69, 69. So far this year, 55.6 coverage grade. He had a really bad outing against Baltimore as far as the grades are concerned, but 8 targets, 5 receptions, 37 yards, and a pass breakup is what he's given statistically. The slot cornerback has been Miles Harden. Miles Harden has been pretty awful. He was a 2024 7th-round pick. He had a 33 PFF grade in 2024. It's up to a 51, but that's still obviously terrible. He had a 31 coverage grade. That is up to a 47. Now, he didn't play a ton in 2024, and obviously hasn't played a ton in 2025, but the grades are pretty consistent at this point that it is not going particularly well. And then finally, the safeties. You got Grant Delpit. Delpit's been around a little bit. He is actually second right now in snaps, but they're both out there a ton. He was a second-round pick back in 2020 out of LSU. He was one of those guys that was going to be like a top 10 pick. It was a big, big deal, and then he ended up sliding, and seemingly for good reason. He's off to a fantastic start so far this year, but another guy that I would kind of expect to regress unless it's a year 5 breakout. His grades have been relatively consistent, 63, 63, 70, and 65. His coverage grades 64, 62, 75, 61. So outside of his one decent year in 2023, he's been low 60s kind of across the board. So far, though, he's had an 80 grade, 84 run defense, 81 tackling, and 72 coverage. All of those are uncharacteristically high. He has 6 targets, 4 receptions, 37 yards, and a pass breakup so far. The other safety is Ronnie Hickman. He's a 2023 UDFA. He's currently at a 72 grade, 69 run defense, 68 coverage. That's all relatively on par for him. He has 5 targets, 3 receptions for 21 yards. No touchdowns, interceptions, or pass breakups. Looking at kick and punt return. On kickoff return, they've had 2 different guys, DeAndre Carter and Jerome Ford. Carter averaged 24 yards per attempt, Jerome Ford 20. Both of them are sitting just slightly below a 60 PFF grade, nothing fantastic there. Carter also has been their primary punt returner. He's got 3 returns for 41 yards, 13.7 average. Isaiah Bond attempted 1, but it was a fair catch, so don't know where that lands, but I don't see anybody that is particularly elite in that group. Punter is Corey Bajorquez, somebody that we are familiar with, 71 PFF grade as far as punting. 45.7 yards per attempt, 36.3 net, 55 was his longest. He's kicked 3 inside the 20. His hang time is a 4.24. And then as far as the field goals are concerned, and by the way, he is injured, but he is probable to play, Bajorquez, that is. So he was a full participant on Thursday. He should be perfectly fine, but he does have a right ankle injury, so we'll see. The field goal kicker, interestingly enough, oh no, it is the same guy. I've never even heard of this guy before. Andre Smith, S-Z-M-Y-T. Smith, I guess. He has a 33 field goal kicking grade. He's 3 of 4 on extra points and 2 of 3 on field goals. He missed 1 in the 30-yard range. So in 2 games, he's already missed an extra point and missed a 30-some-odd yarder. Of the 2 he made, 1 was in the 30-yard range, 1 was in the 40-yard range. So very, very iffy as far as their kicker is concerned. Keep that in mind. If there are any, they're going to go for a 54-yard field goal or something like that. That would be his first attempt in that range, and he hasn't been super good. He is a 2023 UDFA, originally picked up by the Chicago Bears, and this is his first time actually getting a starting kicking gig in the regular season. So, first and probably last. I'm guessing this won't last very long, and they're probably already working the phones trying to find somebody else. But they're not going to get somebody else before the Packer game, I would guess. So, this is what we get. Congratulations, Packer fans. So, there you have it. Very new defense, at least in a lot of different ways. A lot of different people, linebacker and defensive tackle especially. Some of that may be contributing to a lot of what we're seeing. We'll have to see. There's also a lot of familiarity with this defense, and this defense has never been particularly great. You got a great pass rusher, which helps, no doubt about it, but the massive jump that they took, you have to wonder if that's a little bit fake, I guess. We'll see. But tomorrow, obviously, we'll go over some of the Sunday games, and I also want to delve into a little bit more schematically the Cleveland Browns and maybe how the matchup looks between the two teams. But for now, I'm going to leave it at that. You all have a good day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.